Welcome to Identity Unboxed, where we provide mentorship and promote representation for Black professionals and the advancement of the Black community.
We are seeking guidance from exceptional Black leaders, scholars, and professionals with expertise in their respective fields.
We hope to foster a space that promotes authenticity, inclusivity, and restoration for our listeners while exploring the intersection of our personal and professional lives.
This project is a culmination of our lived experiences as young Black professionals to transform our life trajectories, to overcome adversity, and reach triumph.
Our intention is to inspire you on your path to discovering your purpose. Hey everyone, I am really looking forward to sharing some stories I've written over the past few years that discuss my identity. Some of you may know that I do write in my free time. I have been a freelance writer for a while. I've not been doing that as often because of life, work, the podcast, so many other things, but it is something that I really love to do and a passion of mine. I mostly write creative nonfiction on Black culture and identity. So I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit about my own personal journey. And that was something that Brad and I heard recently from the survey that we shared with you all. So we got some feedback that you all would like to hear a little bit more about us in our future content. So a part of our response to that is sharing some of ourselves with you all. So I did pick 3 pieces of writing from the past few years that I will be sharing here in some clips. And then Brad and I just recently did a conversation on my own journey, navigating growing up in a predominantly white town and coming to understand my identity as a biracial Black woman, and also being the first and the only in many spaces. So I really hope that you all enjoy a bit of my own perspective on coming to be who I am today. And I am not a spoken word artist by any means. That's not something I've done before. So I hope that this is engaging for you all. Maybe that's something I'll look into doing when I have some extra time, picking up as a hobby, maybe going to some open mic nights. But I really hope again that you all enjoy these stories, that they resonate with you. And Brad and I are just so grateful that we continue to have a consistent audience that tunes into the work that we're doing. It means so much. And thank you again. So, the first piece I'm going to be sharing is called Don't Touch My Hair. This was something that I wrote back when I was a student at the University of Washington in the journalism program, and it discusses my relationship with my hair as an extension of my soul and my culture, and coming to understand beauty, especially the beauty in Blackness, being in spaces that were always characterized by Eurocentric beauty standards. I had to come to understand how to accept and celebrate who I am as a Black woman and all of our beautiful features and how we show up and glow. Um, so I'm excited to share this with you all. And here I go. Don't touch my hair. Stark my reflection stood, gazing back at me boldly. My hair did not look like the other little girls. Fragile to the touch, too much handling could harm it, sucking the moisture right out. I tried to contain this puff that poked out of my head in all directions. It was as if my hair announced my presence before I spoke a word. In fact, it shouted words that I had no control over. The perception of my hair was out of my control. I bundled it up, restricting it of the vibrant character it exuded. With gel, I slicked it back as best I could. I didn't want to stand out. Why did it have to be so frizzy and loud? Like yarn, it would not be tamed. It felt like the wool of a sheep. I felt like a black sheep in a world that told my hair that it was wrong to not resemble the rest of the flock. My mother's hair carried the elegant beauty that I believed to be the only beauty that was sought by others. Her hair was smooth like silk to the touch, never frizzy. It didn't impose its presence on others. It behaved without much work at all. Tears flowed down my cheeks as she brushed mine. It always hurt so terribly, the way it would not when I awoke before school. She tried her best to be gentle with it, but it was foreign to her. She always wanted me to love my hair, but I refused. I held the nature of it to be the product of a curse like that cast on Medusa. She tried her best to style it, learning the styles of my culture. She cornrowed and braided it in intricate patterns, decorated it with colorful little bows and clips. On picture days, I refused to let my curls be seen. Those curls spoke the tales of my blackness. The kids at school would invite themselves to touch my divine curls. I continued to be the black sheep that I felt. They never asked but assumed I would welcome their invasive petting hands. A spectacle I was on most days, but on picture day, no one ever dared let their hands touch my hair. It could not be smooth but unruly. I begged my mother to straighten it. She refrained, but allowed me to do so just for picture day. When the photos came back, I felt pretty. I had taken control of my appearance. I fit in on the pages of the yearbook, but still each day I awoke to this tangle of a fro. Why did the curls coil so tight? They could not be straightened to the point of submission, but on picture day, I felt pretty. I found my mother's straightener and I singed the ends to a crisp, stripping it of its buoyancy with the touch of an iron. Mom, look! I was so proud of myself for the work I had done. She gasped at the crime I had committed. Oh, when did you do this? It's burnt to a crisp. I just wanted to be pretty. She had me condition my hair that night. The pleasant scent of coconut and shea wafted through the air. Gentle my hair asked to be treated, it did nothing but shine unapologetically if allowed. It begged to be, but I would not let it. I would hide it and despise it for years to come. I had assaulted my helpless head. With each sizzle of the iron, it was as if my blackness wailed for forgiveness. My dad told me the stories of his two sisters hollering to be rinsed when the lye relaxer began to burn. Left for a minute too long, it would leave burns on their scalp. My mother would never let me use a relaxer on my sensitive, fine hair. You have good hair, my dad would tell me, for the definition of good seemed to be drummed up out of mere opinion. Why was my hair more beautiful than that of my black aunts? I could not allow the cries in my hair to be heard. I was blinded by an illusion of proposed beauty. I felt pretty. Stiff and lifeless, it hung past my shoulders. It didn't dance in the way it did when I bathed it in oils that smelt of the tropics, quenching its thirst. It was still a bit frizzy, although the frizz may never go away. After all, it was not meant to be treated in such a harsh manner. These curls protected the scalps of my ancestors as they toiled away in the hot sun that beat down on their backs. At the hands of ruthless slave owners, their hair was their armor. In the motherland, my ancestors danced in the heat to the songs of Africa. Their hair they treated as precious as the most sacred pearls. Their hair was a crown signaling their regality, adorned in gold clasp and beads that sang of their praises. With enough effort, surely I could force it to wilt under the heat of the iron that assassinated its livelihood. I feel pretty, as a part of the flock that would unsuccessfully attempt to mesh with. The aisles of the store carried hundreds of products for normal hair. I'd pick up the bottles and stare in wonder at the shampoo described for normal hair types. Straight and smooth, it would say. The section of my aisle was so meek. As an afterthought, it seemed it was thrown together. Maybe a handful of products could tame the coils that were always so demanding. The products in my section of the aisle spanned just a couple of shelves. The products did not say normal, but some offered the promise of achieving it. On one set were the relaxers meant to open the pathway to whiteness. In just 10 minutes, one could destroy the natural beauty of their precious curls, destroying the curl pattern for the foreseeable future. As a gift, my dad bought me a relaxer for my hair, one that I could do at home. While I contemplated the idea, I tossed it under the bathroom sink, never to be touched. For that did not mean I did not subject my hair to the hate I bestowed upon it after that moment. I still straightened it with different treatments at the salon, spending hundreds of dollars to buy my happiness with the desired look. I sat in the chair waiting for the stylist to wash out a conditioning treatment to rid the frizz. She shared that, maybe one day you will have a revelation and begin to love your gorgeous hair as it is. I assured her I could never, for who would ask to don the hassle my hair gave me each morning? I once allowed bundles of weave to be sewn into my head. For hours, I sat in the chair as the braids nearly tore my roots out, attaching the fake hair to my head, tugging on the helpless strands, and giving me a headache for nearly a week. So long, I thought I would never come to terms with my hair as the extension of my soul. Angelic was Solange Knowles' voice as she shared her song, Don't Touch My Hair, I recalled during my senior year of high school. Days I would venture into school, allowing the curls to regain their shape, refraining from attacking them any longer. Rather, I would nurse them with love. My freshman year of college, I cut the battered remains of the spies my hair carried all these years. Several inches fell to the ground. The flat iron went into the garbage. With the lost strands, I freed myself from this false reality. The curls sprung from my head, renewed in their return. Each curl, unlike another, twists effortlessly as the breeze of a soothing cool wind on a warm summer day. They bounce in pleasure with exuberance to live freely as once yearned for a near eternity. As of the grace of the most well-trained ballerina, they demand captivation of the eye and admiration of their beauty. I look at my reflection and she is brighter than ever dreamt. I see curls that speak of triumph that follows intense struggle and strength acquired from enduring the tumultuous journey. They make a statement to exist as intended despite forces of condemnation that seek to dim their vibrancy. They dance as they once did before. I felt pretty. All right. So the next part of this series for personal narratives that I'm sharing is one about the influence of Black ancestral legacies and their significance in the pursuit of liberation and justice. This is a story that I wrote a couple of years ago about my own family and history as I came to understand it once I got older. And I think right now, especially when we're seeing an erasure of Black history, it's more important than ever that we preserve these narratives and archive our stories because if we don't do it, then who else will? And so, with that, I'm going to share a piece with you that I wrote called Lineage. My dad sat at our makeshift dining table. It really was an outdoor patio table with earthy, misshapen stones that made the surface uneven and crumbs would fall into the crevices as we ate our meals. The table was a bit too short for my dad as he hunched over laboring on a doodle of the logo that represented his aspirations. He was an artist. I remember the doodle he made of a black man beaming with a proud expression on his face, a baseball cap on to shield him from the sun as he toiled away with a cartoonish paintbrush in hand on a charming and classic American suburban home. It was a joyous caricature with an incandescent smile that encompassed a future he wanted to lay for his family. Cole's Painting Company, he called it. It was not much of a company yet, but a one man show. He left the Deep South, growing up as a black man in Bessemer, Alabama, one of four children to a single mother who worked as a maid in gargantuan homes exuding opulence. They were the kind of homes that my dad would take me on drives to admire and awe in his rustic Chevrolet work van. He would often say, "One day we will be able to move into a home like this." The earliest memories of watching my dad pave a path to stability for our small family began to be solidified when I was around 5 years old. We would drop off his flyers on bulletin boards in the wealthy neighborhoods that I don't recall seeing many people that looked like us. Sometimes we'd knock on the doors of homes under construction to see if they might need a paint job done when the time came. There was one house I recall on State Avenue down in Olympia, my hometown. My dad beamed as we drove by it. "Look over to the right there. I painted that one." I could hear the gratification in his voice as he shared the words. Gratification derived from crafting something of his own carved out of dignity and hard work. Something that could fashion itself as a gift for his children to revel in. The house was deep Everest green with a white trim, a modest house but well kept with a small garden of yellow tulips in the front yard. I hope that we too one day could afford to live in a home like that, one that we owned with bright tulips and not the shabby apartment offered through Section 8 with leaky windows and a 10 by 10 slab of concrete as our front yard. His work was intermittent and the projects just barely enough to make ends meet. My dad had initially gone into the Army. That was what brought him here to Washington a few years before I was born, and also when he met my mother. He ended up going to technical school, earning an associate's in construction. His business was just getting off the ground, but barely. My mother worked minimum wage jobs, supplementing my dad's income with social welfare benefits. My dad's business was just getting off the ground, but it seemed no matter how much effort he put in, one bill or untimely car repair would swiftly topple the progress, reverting him back to square one. He could barely afford the tools and equipment required to get the job done. I watched as he struggled for a few more years to pursue his dream of owning a business before my parents' marriage became afflicted by overdue electric bills, spells of unemployment, and incessant arguments, leading to an absence of hope for their future together. I will never forget the nights I would come home from school to my dad barbecuing on our little charcoal grill on the back porch of our quaint apartment. He was an exceptional cook, adding a heavy dash of soul, butter, and cream into the rich soul food he would make, grits being one of my favorites. He valued me getting an education, always prioritizing the importance of school. He was proud to be a dad, although he did not have one to model his role from. He never met his father, but shared that his dad once attempted to meet him and his mother turned him away as he stood, a young black boy behind the door within earshot. I knew he wanted the best for my brother and me. The worst memories of my childhood seemed to be permeated in my mind, particularly when I began to recognize how little we had. I felt the wave of embarrassment when I showed up on the first day of second grade in one of my favorite shirts. It said "Baby Girl" in blue bubble letters with little silver sparkles outlining the words. It was my favorite shirt until that day when a classmate pointed out that I had worn it the year before. I never wore it again. The split of my parents' marriage when I was around 9 left my mother to raise two black children with little knowledge to prepare my brother and I on how to navigate our identity. Almost entirely isolated from our black culture, while our dad, whom we occasionally saw between his financial woes and frequent moves, was our only tie to begin to explore an understanding of our history and black roots. I learned to perform, existing in white spaces, presenting but a portion of myself. A minimized version, remembering that in order to be taken seriously, I needed to speak softly and articulately, be well mannered, and prove that I should be accepted. Conformity was crucial in that I needed to relinquish the style of speech and dress, the texture of my hair, and the exuberance that characterized my Blackness. I recalled my dad mentioning that after he had lived in Washington, his family had commented that his dialect had shifted to one that they categorized as white, an utter noticeable transformation from the quick and pace of Southern speech that he once spoke in the heart of the South. My upbringing was in direct juxtaposition to my dad's, as my proximity to whiteness provided me opportunity and access. Raised by my mother's side of the family, learning the ways of whiteness, and switching my way into spaces that formerly my black ancestors did not occupy. It was my responsibility to make it known that I was a challenge to the stereotypes and stigmas associated with my people amidst the sea of whiteness I found myself in. The dichotomy of my identities was that regardless of my attempts to assimilate, my blackness would comprise others' perceptions of me. They would say, "You're so articulate," following my ability to deliver my thoughts in a coherent manner. Bewildered, I would sit in the face of their astonishment, determined to achieve twice as much to display that I was, in fact, intelligent enough, capable enough, and adept at whatever I tackled. These attempts were at the demise of my ability to simply experience joy. For each feat and tribulation, although joyous in spurts, depicted a centuries long battle of my people's resilience against systematic blockades erected upon our arrival to these lands by the hands of the white man, representative of a weight that each black person carried upon one drop of black lineage within their bloodline. The 2008 recession hit, and the humble start of what could have been a bright future of a potential line of generational wealth crumbled. Cole's Painting Company was a remnant of a shattered ideation meant to uplift my family's lineage. It was hope that my father clung to as he fought the chains of poverty, chains that arose from the ills of slavery, bounding black lives in the present through unjust institutions not designed for people with the past like my father's to succeed. The banks wouldn't grant him access to capital to continue to forge his vision, and evidently, he did not have much of a cushion to fall back on. His dreams would remain in the realm of stagnancy without the resources to catapult them to success. He meandered between various trades, abandoning his hopes and subsisting in a perpetual loop of misfortunes plagued with racism. It was the tale of a black man who sought to beat a system that was only won through sheer happenstance and a good dose of opportunity. Without the two, the chances of making it out to achieve the American dream were slim to none. Historically, when our community has almost escaped racism's ceaseless grasp, we are struck down by those that harbor animosity towards our resilient nature and our rebelliousness in pursuit of our liberation. It was seen in the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre as Black America's dreams had begun to move toward fruition. Greenwood Avenue displaying the strides of Black entrepreneurs, just a few decades removed from legal bondage, living lives of prosperity. It was momentous our excellence was on full display, a direct contradiction to white America's perceptions of our people. Despite the confines they placed on us, we superseded their limited characterizations. Refining our futures with pride. In a sheer moment, a town representing the testament of our will to succeed was smothered in ashes, stricken with despair, and left with merely no trace. Our history was rewritten without us, masking our blackness in pain and riddled with adversity, rather than cloaked in pride and interminable endurance to attain justice and confront the social order. But we persist. My people sat at the counters of diners, boiling coffee and plates of today's special hurled on them by patrons, insisting the black presence was separate but equal. But we persist, demanding that we deserve to be taught in the same buildings as whites, marching for justice and putting our lives on the line. But we persist. A black man occupied the highest executive seat in the nation for two presidential terms. We persist until we see that each barrier hindering the success of our people has been dismantled, until we see the moment that our relentless efforts may be enjoyed by generations to come, and until we see true deliverance from our fettered past. My history is the impetus behind the reason that I must persist to restore justice for my lineage. All right. So, this last piece that I'm going to share with you is a little bit more uplifting. So, I thought it would be nice to end on. But if you do want to hear any more of my work, you can head to my portfolio. It's the same link as the podcast page. It's tianacole.wordpress.com. Everything is free to read on there. You don't have to subscribe or anything. So I would appreciate if you head on over and take a look. Um, but I am looking forward to sharing this story that I wrote. I think it was last year, called The Little Black Cowgirl. Some people know that are close to me that I grew up as a lifelong equestrian. It was a huge passion of mine and a love that has really transformed who I am today. But I came to find out later on that some of the first cowboys were black, which I was never taught. And I found that surprising because I was immersed in that world for so long. And that was just not something that I ever knew. So, because of discovering that fact, I decided to translate some of my feelings onto the page and just share a bit of that history with you all. So, I hope you learned something new. And thank you again so much for tuning in to all of these different clips. I know they are a bit long, but I, again, just appreciate all of your support and thank you so much. So, I'm going to read The Little Black Cowgirl. In a world where I peered around to see that I was the only, in this world the feeling was amplified and the isolation experience much deeper. My introduction to this world, steeped in elitism and shrouded in copious amounts of wealth, came before I could conceive how I fit into it. The parameters set for me to navigate were outlined in ambiguity before me as my identity convoluted the journey, and the confluence of my internal world and this one were in contention. I was 5 years old, a little black girl gleefully riding a pony at the county fair, beaming ear to ear. I sat up straight, my shoulders back, chin up, absorbing the thrill of trotting at a glacial pace along the circumference of the carousel. The joviality emanating off of me was so glaring that it was apparent that my family knew this was just the start. I saw you sit up so straight with such focus that I knew we had to get you into lessons, my grandma had said. That day was the start of a love for a sport that I would not relinquish for my entire childhood, despite the insulation of my identity to exist within it, meandering and molding myself to not stand out. At around 7, I threw on a pair of boots, helmet, and saddled up to begin taking formal lessons. We were a family of horsewomen on my mom's side, so it soon became known that I had inherited the familiar horse bug. My grandma shuttled me to and from lessons from that day forward, opening a lens into this reality of leisure and pleasantries of equestrianism. I felt liberated yet subdued as I found my footing within the space, transcending the systematic barriers that excluded my Black ancestry from reveling in such pleasure. I had received an opportunity through the passage of whiteness to decode this unfamiliar arena that I found myself within. At the time, childlike wonder and bliss led me to bypass the fact that there was a notable lack of representation in this sport. Coupled with a lack of self awareness and my enmeshment in the whiteness from my family I was raised in, the town I grew up in, and the schools I attended, I'd become accustomed to being the only in almost every aspect of my life. It was my sole existence, leaving me with a nagging yearning to connect with the crux of my being. The dichotomy presented itself as I began to unearth the history of my culture. It was critical that I explored the significance of what I was afforded to be the only in one of the arguably most elitist and exclusionary sports, but more so that I understood how it functioned to maintain the sphere of prestige that admitted rich history integral to its formation. Revealed to me in this world of glitz, glam, and luxury was that this hobby reserved for the well off and white to enjoy had not paid homage to the black cowgirls and cowboys that had laid the foundation of what is known as the Wild West. While imagery depicted in Hollywood films portrays the all American cowboy with a shotgun in their holster, a cigar resting in the corner of their lip, and a cowboy hat atop their head, black cowboy spirits were in their wake, adeptly herding and roping cattle. Black cowboys were found gliding swiftly over the finish line to victory amongst onlookers enthralled by their deft horsemanship and neck rivalries. They led Kentucky Derby steeds to the winner's circle, serving as trusty and steadfast stable hands to the upper echelon's most prized commodity. Their owners posing for the front page in their Sunday best of vibrant hues and gaudy frills, brimming their outsized hats, while the ones tending to their lottery ticket collected their meager wages and awaited in the wings to carry out the menial tasks. When you think of country flair, one might envision Texas, pickup trucks, a bottle of beer with the backtrack of an acoustic guitar playing a low and robust string of notes. Some might drop the ideation of the loyal patriot, strumming away with the southern drawl as he belts the tune of his most recent heartbreak. The manifestations are a representation of a style and culture meticulously and intentionally curated to erase the essence that lends to its substance. When you think of country, the black slaves confined to plantations in the deep south are at the genesis, in which the genre staked its claim, and continues to occupy the zeitgeist since its inception. They harmonized with banjos in hand, breathing soul into harmonicas with effervescent song, reviving their stifled spirits. Their exuberant music encompassed the lifeblood of the South as they labored away on erecting America's infrastructure brick by brick. While plucking cotton and raising the master's kin, they infused the fabric of our nation with rhythm, resilience, and unparalleled remarkability. In the wake of whiteness, whilst resisting the relentless turmoil inflicted upon us for centuries, we embodied the love and unwavering faith that comprises the soothing melodies of America's figment of country. We were not simply bound by chains at the whim of the slave master. We were skilled and noble black cowboys and cowgirls, caring for the land and farms that white generations have prospered from. In their wake, we have been subject to the extraction of our humanity and the diminishment of our value before our eyes. A little black cowgirl, I peered around in bemusement. We were never meant to be in their wake because we were always at the center. We were the creators of this culture that extracts the core of its brilliance directly from our contributions. Through us, from us, and because of us, a reinvented space without us was concocted. We wore boots and spurs, cowboy hats and chaps, and pride ourselves on paving the way. When I peered around in the saddle, I wondered why only me? As a little black cowgirl, I was conspicuous, unable to discern if I belonged. If only I'd known that I existed in this space because of the black cowgirls and cowboys that paved it, once called upon to impart our knowledge by those who sought to preclude us. In proximity, our spirits wane in hope for a day that we can repossess our revolutionary past. A little black cowgirl, I peered around in marvel of the world that was designed by us. A little black cowgirl, I remembered that I always belonged. It was others that left me in their wake.
We deeply appreciate your support as we work to uplift the Black community and explore our unique experiences within the Black diaspora on Identity Unboxed.
Authenticity is your guide to cast an impact on the world that you will be proud of. Signing off with pride, Tiana.
And Brad.
Thank you so much.